I want to welcome everyone to Overcoming Perfectionism, the Junior League of Bergen County's latest virtual training. I'm Britt Erica Tunick, the current president of the Junior League of Bergen County, and we're glad you're all able to join us this evening. Tonight's speaker is Vitaly Buford, who is an IPEC certified executive coach, trainer, award-winning speaker, and author. She is the author of the New York Times featured book, Addicted to Perfect, which details her 10-year struggle with Adderall and perfectionism. Her experience includes more than a decade working in marketing and business development for multiple industries and professional service organizations. She combines her personal experience, professional education, and training with her specialized healing techniques to create a unique coaching system. Now I'm going to turn things over to Vitaly, but before I do, I just want to remind everybody, could you please put yourselves on mute so that you aren't interrupting Vitaly unintentionally. And now, Vitaly, the floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Just wanted to ask people to have pen and paper with them. There's definitely going to be note taking and it'll be interactive. We'll do some sharing. I'm really excited today. I love giving this presentation. Like Britt said, I struggled with perfectionism for more than 3 decades, which is why I'm passionate about helping all perfectionists become recovering perfectionists. In fact, 97% of people struggle with some form of perfectionism. And obviously others struggle more than, some more than others. For me, every single area of my life was plagued by perfectionism, and it showed up as a 10-year addiction to Adderall, which started when I was in college. And I took it because it made me very thin, and I could work ridiculous hours at work, and I was dying on the inside, but I looked perfect on the outside. And it was almost 7 years ago that I decided I need to get sober. I need to change my life. I can't live this way anymore. I was leading a very successful corporate career, but no one could tell that I was really struggling. And so as I was writing my book 2 years ago, I realized no one's talking about perfectionism. And Adderall addiction, that's just a small symptom of perfectionism. You don't have to struggle with Adderall to struggle with perfectionism. And I'm going to go over all the different pieces of perfectionism today so that we can uncover your own patterns. And I'm going to teach you tools that you can leave with today to overcome your perfectionism. So one of my favorite quotes about perfection is by Brene Brown. And it's that perfection is a 20-ton shield that we think will protect us when it's actually the thing that's preventing us from taking flight. We've been sold this lie that perfectionism is the key to success, but it's actually what's blocking us from success. So what is perfection? Perfection is this false identity, this persona that we think we need to be anything other than ourselves to feel worthy and to feel valid. It's when we outsource our self-worth, our intuition, our decision-making to other people. It's when we're constantly seeking advice, right? It's very externally motivated. So it's when we allow other people to be the expert of us. And it's very deep rooted, right? When people typically think of perfectionism, they think, oh, a perfectly organized house or a perfectly clean car. And I'm talking about the deep roots of perfectionism, right? These are coping mechanisms that were started probably when we were children. It was for me. I was raised in an alcoholic, workaholic home environment. And because of that chaos, I thought that I needed to be perfect to be loved. And so for me, that meant really high achieving in school, and it meant really thin. And that's when I got praised. And so as a child, I learned or thought that equaled perfection equaled love, perfection equaled worthiness. And as an adult, that no longer serves me. And so perfectionism has very, very deep roots. So before we move on to the details of perfectionism, I also want to draw a distinction between perfectionism and excellence. Because a lot of people come to me and they're like, Vitaly, I've achieved a substantial amount of success as a perfectionist. Why would I change? Why would I stop trying to achieve perfection if I've been successful up until this point? And so here is a graphic. Hold on, it makes me smile. The difference between perfection and excellence. The car on the left is extremely stressed out, anxious, controlling, right? That is the car that I lived in for more than 3 decades of my life. We're going to play it again because it makes me smile. The car on the right is excellence, right? So, you can achieve the same amount of success and more, but without all of the anxiety and stress. And so most of us spend our lives living in the car on the left. And so what is the difference between perfection and excellence? Because you really want to lead a life of excellence, not a life of perfection. And perfection is externally motivated, right? It's fear-based, control-based, right? I don't want to take that risk because what if it doesn't happen? What if I fail? What if people judge me? Excellence is internally motivated. It's courage-based. Like I'm worthy of taking this risk. I'm going to go for it. It's trust-based. Perfection is when we are performing. Think about it. Think about the last presentation you gave for work. Were you really showing up as your true self, or were you performing? Right? I always know I'm in perfection mode when I'm performing. Excellence is when we're in our authenticity, right? We know that we have the right skill set. We give that presentation, we have that conversation, and we stand in our authenticity, right? Perfection is when we're constantly seeking advice. So what do you think I should do, right? I need you to be happy for me to be happy. Whereas excellence is input, right? When you're asking for feedback, collaboration, there's a big distinction between advice and input. Also, perfection is when we are being the passenger of our life, right? Because perfection is calling the shots for our entire life because we're allowing other people to determine our life, our outside circumstances to determine our life and the decisions that we make. Whereas excellence is when we are the CEO and the leader of our life. We're calling the shots, we're making our decisions, we're in tune with ourselves. And so really this presentation is about taking your power back, no longer being the passenger of your life, and really stepping in and becoming the CEO and the leader of your life, not just at work, but also personally. So what are some symptoms of perfectionism? And this slide, a lot of people look at this slide and sometimes they can feel attacked because a lot of the symptoms they resonate with. And I want to first say that all of the symptoms on this slide, in fact, everything I'm teaching you today, I've struggled with personally, right? I don't teach anything that I haven't gone through myself or a client hasn't gone through. And so all of this is experience-based. Also, as perfectionists, we're highly critical of ourselves, we're judgmental. And so for the next 60 minutes, put that judgment and that criticism and that shame aside, because we can't heal the parts of ourselves that we hate. And so you're going to grow more, you're going to heal more if you're open-minded during the next 60 minutes. So these are some of the symptoms, right? We'll start with the right. Procrastination, right? We either procrastinate because we think we need all the perfect information before making a decision or moving forward, or we're too afraid to start that project because we're afraid it won't be perfect enough. And so we have unrealistic expectations. And those expectations are not only of yourself, but also of others. When I was leading the marketing teams, I used to work in the legal industry and I led the marketing and business development departments at large law firms. And I had unrealistic expectations of myself. And therefore I had unrealistic expectations of my team. Now we achieved a lot and were very successful, but we were successful, like we were in the car, we were living in that car on the left, you all, completely stressed, controlled, anxious, overwhelmed. Another symptom of perfectionism, when we are avoiding conflict, right? We avoid that difficult conversation with our partner, a loved one, a colleague, because we can't control other people, right? We can't control the outcome of a conversation. It scares us, so we just avoid it completely. And so when we're people pleasing, right? I need you to be happy for me to be happy. When we're constantly seeking validation and approval, we feel stuck, that constant need for control. The bottom right, indecision, right? So not trusting our decisions. We ask other people what decisions we should make, or we make a decision and we question it for days and weeks after. Should I have made that? Or, a decision that maybe we perceive as being a wrong decision, we'll beat ourselves up for. We constantly compare ourselves. And the byproducts of this, also imposter syndrome, is a symptom of perfectionism, right? We're in the room, we feel like a fraud, we're afraid to speak up. And so the byproducts of all of this are obsessive thinking, right? We're always in our head because perfectionism gets us out of our hearts and in our heads. We're in chronic anxiety, fear, and stress, low self-worth. And so you can live a better life. And so I've lived this way for 3 decades, and there is a better way, and I'm here to tell you, and it is my mission to spread the message. So how is it hurting you, right? Those are the symptoms. These are some of the ways that it shows up and it's hurting you, right? It raises your stress levels through the roof. So you operate with chronic stress. Maybe you have lived with such chronic stress, you don't even know that it's chronic stress because that's your bar. It's highly associated with anxiety and depression. It fuels that disappointment, that fear, that frustration, because you're constantly, beating yourself up, or you're afraid of failure or judgment. It crushes your confidence. As leaders, as CEOs of our lives, confidence is key to us showing up and feeling good about ourselves. It increases destructive behavior. And again, like I was mentioning, it impacts your decision making because you don't trust yourself. And so you're constantly asking everyone else what decision you should make. So how does it show up specifically in your career? So these are just some examples of how it can show up and manifest in your career. Right? It's when you read an email 30 times before sending it, or you have a typo in an email and you beat yourself up for hours over the typo, right? They're going to think I'm incompetent. I can't believe I did that. What was I thinking? It's when you don't ask for that raise or promotion because you feel unworthy, right? Well, I have it a lot better than other people. So, I just shouldn't ask for it. Plus, what if they think I'm greedy if I ask for it? All of those things. Imposter syndrome, like I mentioned, not speaking up in meetings for fear of judgment, right? Like, I don't want to ask the dumb question. I'm afraid what people will think. What if this idea is silly? It's when you set people-pleasing deadlines at work instead of realistic deadlines. How many of us have done that, right? They're like, so when can you get that done? And I'm like, oh, I can get it done by Friday. And I know good and well that my project list is 20 miles long and it is not going to get done without a lot of stress, overwhelm, obsessive thinking. So we procrastinate when we over-identify with our career, right? Like our career is 100% our identity. And so we take on too many projects and we feel burnout, right? We never say no. We're afraid that if we pass up a project that will be irrelevant, right? Like if I pass up this one, will I be passed up for the next one, right? That need for control. So what are some examples of how it shows up in your life, right? It's when you put yourself last on the list. You are constantly doing for others. You're afraid to say no. It's when you're not able to make a decision. You're constantly asking other people. This was a big thing for me. Like I was known for phoning 8 friends. Like, what should I do about this relationship? What should I do about this career decision? And so one of the things I did to heal my need for approval and validation was I went on an approval advice detox. And for 2 weeks, I didn't ask for advice or seek validation from anyone. And it was one of the most painful 2 weeks of my life because I was so used to asking for approval and constantly asking people what decision that needed to be made, but it was really helpful. It's when you're constantly comparing yourself, you set goals and you don't take action. You lack healthy boundaries in relationships. Maybe there's a lot of codependency in your relationships. You don't speak up for your needs, right? You don't tell your partner how you really feel because what if you get rejected? What if, they don't take your needs seriously, or you think that you're not allowed to feel needy, right? When you're allowed to feel all of your feelings. And then lastly, the word should is always an indication that you are in perfection mode, right? Because it's expectations. I should do this. I should do that. I should be further along. So this is what perfection looks like. This is an overview. And so today what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through 3 steps to identify your perfectionism patterns and then heal them. So today you will leave knowing, okay, this is how perfectionism is preventing me and holding me back in my life. And then these are the tools I can use to change it, right? So the 3-step process is awareness, mindset, and action. And we start with awareness because you cannot change what you're not aware of. It is one of the most important steps to growth and change. And so I'm going to talk to you about awareness, and we're also going to do an exercise and have some time to share and interactivity. So there's 2 pieces of awareness that I'm going to cover today. The first is curious observation, and the second is pattern identification. We start with curious observation because curiosity gets us out of our heads And again, as I mentioned earlier, as perfectionists, we are inside our heads 24/7, overthinking things, over identifying with our thoughts and our feelings. And so we've got to get outside and get curious. Also, as perfectionists, we're afraid to get curious because if we get curious, that means we don't know everything. And to not know everything means we're imperfect, right? This was a big thing for me, like to admit that I don't know everything when we're human. And to not know everything means we're constantly evolving and growing. It's actually a sign of strength. But curiosity gets you outside of yourself. And so what I want to do is I'm going to give you an example of what that looks like. So you have a friend call you and she tells you she just got this huge promotion at work and she is so excited. And your first feeling is jealousy. As a perfectionist, you then start beating yourself up. You know, I'm a bad person. Why can't I be happy for my friend? I should be able to celebrate her, but I'm just thinking about myself. I'm selfish. I'm bad. You know, gosh, why am I not getting a promotion at work? You know, it's probably because I'm just not showing up well enough. And you start beating yourself up. It's the perfectionism tornado. It goes on and on and on. And you get stuck in your thoughts, right? When you're in perfectionism, you stay stuck. Now, let's take the same situation, but let's apply curiosity to it. Curious observation. Your friend calls, tells you she got this amazing promotion. She is so excited. And as a curious observer, you feel jealous. But you don't judge yourself. You're like, all right, jealousy is a human emotion. It's not good or bad. You know, I wonder why I feel jealous. You know, what is that? Let me get curious about that. What does that mean? You know, I bet I feel jealous because you know, my work is so important to me and I've really been wanting to get a promotion and I've been wanting to play bigger in my career. I haven't asked for more responsibility and I haven't been showing up in a way that I'm proud of. And so my friend getting that is really triggering my insecurity around my own career. You know, now I can make a different choice. There is a total difference in how that feels. For me, perfectionism feels very tight in my chest. I feel very anxious. Whereas curious observation, I'm like, okay, cool. I'm human. I'm allowed to have these feelings. And what does it say about me? And how can I change? And how can I make a different choice? Right? When you're curious, it gives you choice. When you are in perfectionism mode, you stay stuck. Very important distinction. Now we're going to move into pattern identification. And so what I've done is I've created, right, this is about identifying how perfectionism, what are the patterns of perfectionism? Are there certain areas of your life that perfectionism shows up? Again, as I mentioned earlier, perfectionism showed up in every area of my life. So what I've done is I've created two types of perfectionism. There's slow perfectionism and there is fast perfectionism. So slow perfectionism is the kind of perfectionism that keeps you stuck, right? It's the procrastination, the indecision, the fear of failure, imposter syndrome. It's when you overthink, there's a lack of delegation. Maybe you're holding on to the past. You avoid conflict. You stay stuck. Fast perfectionism, on the other end, is when you are like approval seeking, go, people pleasing. You over identify with work. You're that hurry syndrome, right? You're always in a hurry. It's the chronic multitasking, the overcommitting, the need for control, the constant overwhelm, unrealistic expectations of yourself and others. And so there's slow perfectionism and there's fast. Now, some areas of your life, you'll be a slow perfectionist. Other areas, you'll just be fast. Some, if you're like me, you'll be both slow and fast. And other areas of your life, you may be neither. Again, for me, I was slow and fast in basically every area of my life. So I want to give you some examples of how it can show up in different areas of your life. And then what we're going to do is reflect on how it shows up for you. So let's take health, for example. So right now, you know, things are opening up more. We're seeing people. And if we are in slow perfectionism with our health, maybe we gained weight during the pandemic, right? We're human. But as a slow perfectionist, we don't want to see our friends because we're afraid of judgment. So slow perfectionism in our health would be isolation, right? Really judging ourselves for our appearance. Fast perfectionism in our health is when we work out to punish ourselves, right? We're constantly working out. I can't believe I had that piece of cake. I need to work out twice to burn it off, and really punishing ourselves. How it shows up in our finances. Slow perfectionism in our finances is when we avoid our finances altogether. We don't look at our budget. We don't check our bank account. We out of sight, out of mind. It stresses us out if we don't look at it. It doesn't exist. Fast perfectionism with our finances is when we overspend, right? We're overspending, maybe buying a lot of things to make ourselves feel better, fill that void. So it can show up in that way. Family and parenting. Fast perfectionism could be overcommitting our children to so many different activities. That's an example. In terms of parenting, it could be avoiding difficult conversations. With slow perfectionism with your partner, it could be avoiding having those hard conversations. And then in terms of how it shows up in your work and how you lead others, slow perfectionism is when you procrastinate, like we were saying, you feel like an imposter, so you're not speaking up. Whereas fast perfectionism is when you're taking on too many projects, you're, that overachieving where it leads to burnout, and we're chronically stressed. So it shows up in different ways. So what I want you all to do is I'm going to give you like 2 minutes, and I want you to reflect on your own life, like in your personal life and then in your career. Am I slow? Am I fast? Am I both? And maybe even give some specific examples of how it shows up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the slide with slow and fast perfectionism so you can have some examples. But I'm going to give you all 2 minutes, and then we'll do some sharing, and then we'll move into how to change it now that we know. So take some time and reflect. How does it show up in your personal life? How does it show up in your professional life? And feel free to ask questions in the chat box. And if y'all feel like sharing in the chat box, feel free to go ahead and share what comes up for you.
Kelly, are you seeing anything in the chat box?
Not yet. So what I want to just say, I'd love for people to unmute themselves or turn their video on and
I
share.
don't see the chat function, so I'm wondering if for some reason it's been disabled. I don't recall disabling it, but maybe people need to just unmute.
I can see it.
Oh no, wait, okay, it's working. Okay, good.
So yeah, I would love to have a few people share what came up for them, and feel free to be the first brave, imperfect sharer.
I'm okay sharing. I have it in probably every facet of my life. Anybody in the junior league who knows me knows I am probably the first 10 slides of this presentation to a T, both slow and fast. In my personal life, I definitely suffer from the procrastination and the indecision. Like I bought a house and I'm like struggling, like unpacking still a year later and getting through putting up artwork because I'm afraid that I'm going to make the wrong decision. But I keep asking a million people for their opinion and I can't like get through it. And then I also definitely suffer from the overcommitting and pulling myself way too thin. And I do it in both work and, and in my personal life. So I definitely think you basically described me in the first 10 slides.
Well, I described me too, so no worries, you're in good company. Now I'm gonna give you tools to be free of it. Would love for one more person to share.
I would say that I'm definitely, this is Nicole, that I definitely am probably more of the fast perfectionist. I think I tend to try to people please more by being very accommodating and either taking things on myself and just doing it, or finding ways to make it easier for that person to do it. So
Right.
I would say in like the Rembrandt profiles and all the Tony Robbins things and all the profiles that you have to take for work, I would say that that's probably been a common thread through all those profiles that they make you take.
Yeah.
So definitely, I would say I'm fast.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing, Nicole. Okay, so now we've identified our patterns. Let's get into the tools for changing it. So we're going to start with mindset, right? Because once you know better, right, you've identified your perfectionism patterns. Now you can make a different choice. And that's the power of getting out of perfectionism mode, is we get the power of choice back. We are constantly at the whim of what other people think. We have no choice because we're really playing the victim to what everyone else thinks, and not purposefully. It's a coping mechanism, right? We just think that we need other people to be happy for us to be happy. And so it's all about mindset. One of my favorite quotes regarding mindset is by Wayne Dyer, and it's, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is different mindset tools so that you can take your power back, because your thoughts and your words create your reality. And so there's so much power in your mindset. Right now, you know, right? You're very clear. We were operating in perfectionism mode subconsciously, but now we're conscious of it. Okay. Like Rachel's saying, those first 10 slides describe me perfectly. Like, let's make a different decision. Let's put some tools into place so that we can heal it and you guys can get some relief. So I'm going to cover several different tools for mindset. The first is self-compassion. The second is the 4 C's. Then I'm going to teach you some reframing tools and also cover some mantras. So we start with self-compassion because compassion and perfectionism cannot coexist. Love and perfectionism cannot coexist. Perfectionism is we're constantly being critical. We feel never enough. We feel unworthy. And so when we can purposefully and intentionally infuse our lives with compassion, there is less oxygen in the room for perfectionism. And so we have to be really intentional. Plus, perfectionism is a deeply ingrained habit. Like me, it was formed in childhood, right? So it's a deeply ingrained habit. And so we have to unlearn that habit, and we have to learn a new habit of compassion. And one of the ways that you can disrupt the habit of perfectionism is through the 4 C's. How you lead imperfectly, how you lead with excellence. And so I'm going to take you through this. I'm going to give you some examples and tell you also how to use it. So the 4 C's are criticism, curiosity, compassion, and choice. And what that means is the first C is criticism, which means noticing that criticism in your head, right? Noticing that criticism, then getting curious about it. What does that mean? Then showing yourself compassion, and then making a different choice. So like the example of your friend calling and you felt jealous and you were beating yourself up, you would notice that criticism. I'm such a bad person. I can't believe I would feel jealous. So you would notice that criticism, and then you would get curious. You know, what's really going on here? Why am I feeling jealous? And why am I being hard on myself for feeling this feeling? Then you show yourself compassion, right? Well, of course I feel these things. My career is so important to me. It's a huge part of my identity. So of course I want a promotion. Of course that, you know, I haven't been showing up as big, and my friend's promotion is highlighting the fact that, you know, I haven't been as happy in my career. And then 4th C is choice. Okay, now I can make a different choice. I can show up better in my career tomorrow. I can update my resume. I can look for other careers. I can do something different. Instead, when we are in perfection mode, we stay stuck in that first C, criticism, and we don't move down the 4 C's. The way that I tell my clients, whether in a corporate setting or one-on-one coaching, to work with the 4 C's is I suggest for 2 weeks, every day for 2 weeks, you do a midday check-in with the 4 C's. And so I want you to take 5 minutes of your 24-hour day, and I want you to sit down in the middle of your day, noon, 1, whatever it is for you. And I want you to take 5 minutes, and I want you to reflect on how you were critical of yourself the first part of the day. Was it your parenting? Was it your partnering? Was it how you spoke to your team? Was it an email that you sent? So I want you to just reflect, how was I really critical of myself? And then I want you to take each of those criticisms through the 4 C's. It sounds a little awkward, but if you want a different life, you got to do something different. And also, because perfectionism is such a deeply ingrained habit, we've got to disrupt that habit. And the 4 C's allow you to disrupt that habit of perfectionism. And what it allows you to do is then course correct the second half of your day. So you're not spending your whole day in criticism. You're actually able to flip and show yourself compassion for the second half of the day, or to make a different choice the second half of the day. And so this is a really important formula for change. And yes, it is definitely awkward at first, but all change requires some discomfort. It requires some awkwardness. And so this can really work if you stick to it and you really use that time to reflect. Otherwise, when we stay stuck in our criticisms, the criticism and the perfectionism just snowballs. Right? We spend a day stuck in that. We wake up and we do it again, and the snowball grows and grows and grows. And so we want to disrupt that pattern. The next piece of mindset are reframing tools. And this is about reframing the way you think, right? If we are the leaders and the CEOs of our lives, we have the power of how we perceive things, the power of our thoughts. And so the first tool is going from what if to even if. What if is very fear-based. It's very perfection-based, right? Well, what if my child doesn't make the soccer team? And what if that member of my team, what if she quits? You know, what if I can't pay that bill? What if? And we stay in this obsessive thought loop of what if, right? We think we can what if ourselves to an answer. So instead of being in what if mode, I want you all to flip to even if. Even if my child doesn't make the soccer team, you know, there's going to be a better opportunity. It's going to be okay. Even if that team member quits, you know, that makes room for a more aligned team member. Even if X, Y, and Z, it's going to be okay. And so it's about taking your power back, flipping from what if to even if. This is a tool that I use basically every day. And it's something that really shifts my anxiety. I'm someone who struggles with chronic anxiety. And going from what if to even if really minimizes my anxiety. Another reframing tool is going from uncertainty to possibility. Yes, our lives are uncertain, and the pandemic highlighted that fact more than we probably wanted it highlighted. But when we stay stuck in uncertainty, right? We're staying stuck in the problem. Things are so uncertain. You know, we feel constricted. When we are in uncertainty mode, there are no new ideas coming in, no expansion. We feel stuck. And so instead of being, you know, everything's so uncertain, my future's uncertain, I want you to flip to possibility. And instead of saying like, you know, things are so uncertain, I want you to ask like, what's possible for me? What's possible for my family? What's possible for date night? What's possible for my career? What's possible for how I lead my team? What's possible for this new project? When you flip from uncertainty to possibility, anything's possible. New ideas flow in, your creativity flows in, expansion flows in. And as leaders and CEOs, one of our edges as a leader and a CEO is our ability to be creative. And when we are in uncertainty mode, perfection mode, there is no room for creativity. And so when you ask what's possible, you are inviting in creativity, which is such an important piece of being a leader, right? Coming up with solutions, being creative, thinking outside the box. No matter what your career is, creativity is a really important component. The third reframing tool is going from balance to priorities. Balance is a word I feel like you should just throw out the window. It is a setup for failure, right? Because balance implies that every piece of our life requires equal attention at all times. So it means that parenting requires the same amount of attention as our friends, as our relationship, as our career, as our how we treat ourselves. It implies that every area of our life requires attention, equal attention. And so we're setting ourselves up for failure from the beginning, out of the gate. And so instead of trying to achieve balance, which really isn't possible, I want you to look at priorities. What are your priorities? because priorities allow for flexibility. Now remember, balance doesn't, because again, everything in your life should get equal attention at all times. There's no flexibility with that, right? So with priorities though, there's flexibility because your priorities can change day to day, week to week, month to month, hour to hour. Your priorities are allowed to shift and change. Also, when we are in balance mode, we're with our families, but we're thinking about work. We're at work and we're feeling guilty about not being present with our families. We're never fully present. When we are in a priority mode, instead, we give ourselves permission, right? Because we're looking at, how do I want to spend my time this week? What are my priorities? Instead of balance, everything gets equal attention. With priorities, you can say, this week I have a major work project that has got to get pushed out by the deadline. And that means I'm going to be working late nights, 2 nights this week. And that's my priority. 2 of the nights this week, I'm not going to be as present of a parent. I'm not going to be as present of a partner, and I'm going to give myself permission. But you know what? This weekend, the priority is my family. We got soccer tournaments. We've got, a social event with our friends. And that's going to take priority. And I'm going to be present for all of those things. So priorities allow you flexibility and they allow you to shift and change, which as humans, we shift and we change. The 4th reframing tool is gratitude. Gratitude has been the number 1 mindset tool for shifting my mindset. Like, it is my non-negotiable daily routine. I do not negotiate with my gratitude. And so gratitude is an easy practice that you can do every morning. And you can do it whatever time of day works for you, but I suggest morning, and I also suggest writing it down. Because again, what you appreciate, you all appreciates. And when you are grateful for what you have, you make room for more. You make room for more things to be grateful for. If you're not grateful for things, then why would you attract more? And so the more you can feel that gratitude, the more you open yourself up to more things to be grateful for. But when you write it down, it actually rewires your brain. So I'll be working with clients and they're like, oh, Vitaly, I was laying in bed and I thought about all the things I was grateful for. And I'm like, well, that's better than no gratitude. But if you want the biggest benefit of gratitude, you want to write it down. There's so much power in writing. Now, the way I approach gratitude journaling, and I take 7 or 8 minutes every morning. And sometimes if I'm really into it, I'll go 15 minutes, but it doesn't require a whole lot of time. So the way that I approach gratitude journaling is, instead of just a bulleted checklist, right? Like my health, my family, my vehicle, my career, what I do is something called past, present, and future gratitude journaling. And what I mean by that is every morning I sit down and I think about past gratitude, and that means yesterday. So what happened yesterday that I'm really grateful for? Did I have a really sweet interaction with my son? Did I overcome an obstacle that, I'm really proud? Did I have a difficult conversation that I've been avoiding? Did my client have a really big aha moment? And I'm really grateful for that. Then I think about present gratitude. What am I grateful for in this present moment? And normally it's that I'm awake before anyone else in my house is awake and I've got some silent time to myself, right? I'm drinking coffee, the birds are chirping. Then I think about future gratitude. What's happening later today, tomorrow? Maybe there's a trip this summer you're looking forward to. What's happening in the future that you can feel grateful for? And so you all are in my gratitude journal. I was like, I can't wait to present tonight. And just excited. So it's about just really cultivating a different spirit and an attitude of gratitude, which that sounds hokey. In fact, I've never even said that statement, but just flowed. So it's about creating this attitude of gratitude. So these are the tools of reframing. The final piece of mindset are mantras. Mantras are just a different word for affirmations. I just prefer the term mantras. And mantras are statements that you can use to help you feel grounded when you don't feel grounded. And as perfectionists, when we are trying to control everything, we feel ungrounded, right? Everything's out of our control. I need to control this. We're at the whim of other people's thoughts, judgments, criticisms. And so we feel really ungrounded. And these mantras can help you feel grounded. I have a download that you can text to download at the end. and you can download all of my favorite mantras for perfectionism or for releasing perfectionism, but these are my top 4. So the first one is I give myself room to be human. Right? As perfectionists, we're so hard on ourselves. We made this mistake. I can't believe I did this. We're beating ourselves up weeks after something happened. We can't let go. And I remind myself, I'm human. I give myself room to be human. The coolest thing about this mantra is that when we give ourselves room to be human, we give everyone else around us room to be human. This has been really, really important in my personal life. Because when I give myself room to be human, I give myself room. I give my son room to be human. I give my fiance room to be human. I give my friends room to be human. And so my relationships with them are stronger, they're better. The next mantra is done is better than perfect, right? Just get started. This is the one that's like in my office, like above my computer. And this is the mantra that really carried me through my book writing process. Because again, you all, I wrote a book about my addiction to perfectionism. And so if I had been stuck in perfectionism while writing that book, it would have never been accomplished or completed. And so done is better than perfect. Just get started. Write that first paragraph, draft that email, make that phone call. Just get started. The third one is I cannot miss out on what's meant for me. This one might be my favorite. I say that about each of them, but I cannot miss out on what's meant for me. Your doors of opportunity, you all, are your doors. You cannot miss out on your opportunities, your relationships, the good that is planned for you in your life. You can't miss out on it. And if it misses you, it wasn't meant for you. This allows me to really loosen the reins of control. As an entrepreneur, it's like, I can get really focused on a certain, corporate client or prospect. Like that client's going to give me all the happiness that I want, right? But when I sink into, I cannot miss out on what's meant for me, I don't get obsessed over it. I let it go. I take action and I let go of the outcome because I know that if that client's meant for me, it'll happen. And if not, another client will come in its place. And this goes with everything. Relationships, opportunities. Your doors of opportunity are your doors. Britt's doors of opportunity are not my doors of opportunity. They're hers. And so when we are in perfection mode, though, we are blocking, like we are slowing down the process to our doors of opportunity because we're constantly in angst and self-criticism and stress and control. So you cannot miss out on what's meant for you. And then finally, the mantra, action leads to confidence, which leads to action, right? Confidence is something we need as leaders and CEOs of our lives. And perfectionism is a confidence killer because we're always critical of ourselves, questioning ourselves, second guessing ourselves, doubting ourselves. And so confidence is built, you all, not through thinking. Confidence is built through doing. It's through taking action. And so this one always reminds me, if I'm in a space of like low self-worth, low confidence, I'm like, you know what? I just need to get into action and I'm going to feel so much better about myself. And it's true. I mean, without a doubt, when I get into action, I feel better about myself. And when I feel better about myself, I take more action and it builds on each other. It's really, really powerful. So we talked about step 1, which was awareness. Right? Let's get curious about our thoughts. Let's identify our patterns. And then we moved into mindset, right? Now that we know better, we can do better. We talked about some reframing tools, mantras, the 4 C's. And these are tangible tools that you can use tonight, tomorrow, this week, and beyond to really start overcoming and releasing your perfectionism. The final piece is action, right? Let's get into massive imperfect action. Because we don't get the life that we wish for. We get the life that we are intentional about. And so we can stay stuck in perfectionism, right? Or we can say, I deserve better. And I'm going to get really intentional about changing those patterns. And that's what this is all about, getting really intentional with our lives, right? We don't get the lives we wish for. We get the lives that we're intentional about. And so what I've done is I've created a framework for getting into action. And I'm going to give you some examples, and then I'm going to have each of you come up with your own action plan, and then we'll share, and then I'll open it up for questions. So we start with identifying an area of perfectionism for you. One of the ones that we talked about earlier, maybe it was that you've been avoiding conflict, or maybe it's that you have, you're very self-critical. And so identifying that area of perfectionism. Then I want you to create a goal. And again, I'm going to give you some examples. Then next, it's about identifying the resources and the roadblocks. What are the resources you need to accomplish this goal? And then what are the roadblocks? And I would say 100% of the time, it's ourselves, right? We are our only limit. And then timeline. I don't want you to go beyond 2 weeks for any goal. Now, if it's a bigger goal that legitimately requires 3 months, then break it into a micro goal. What is a goal underneath that bigger goal? And then lastly, which we always forget as perfectionists, how are you going to celebrate when you achieve the goal? Right? As perfectionists, we just say, okay, done, on to the next, on to the next. We never celebrate. And so how are you going to celebrate that win? So for example, and it also, the celebration doesn't have to be a financial celebration. You just need to acknowledge the win. So it could be texting a friend, telling a colleague, whatever it is, you need to acknowledge the win and the achievement. So, area of perfectionism. Let's say you've been avoiding a difficult conversation with a colleague. The goal is to have that conversation. The resources that you need, or you need to sit down and really map out the conversation. What are the points that you want to make? What do you want the result? What do you want the conversation, the result of that conversation to be? And then roadblocks. The roadblocks are you've been avoiding this conversation for 3 months. It's really scary. And your own fear could keep you from having that conversation. The timeline is, okay, you're going to have that conversation by next Tuesday. And then the celebration is maybe you text, another colleague or a friend that you had the conversation. Another example, an area of perfectionism. Maybe you're very self-critical. And so your goal is you want to start daily gratitude journaling. The resources that you need, or you just need some printer paper. You don't need to look at Amazon and have that perfect journal. You just need a piece of paper. The roadblock to gratitude journaling is you could come up with a lot of excuses, right? I don't have enough time. I already have so much on my plate. Like how am I even going to make time for this, even though it only takes 5 minutes? The timeline is you want to really test it out and try to do gratitude journaling every day for 2 weeks. And then the celebration is maybe you buy yourself that gratitude journal that you've been eyeing on Amazon because you proved to yourself that you followed through. So what I want to do is I'm going to give you all 2 minutes and I want you to just think of your own action plan. I'm happy to feel free to unmute yourself and I can talk you through it if you want help. But think about an area of perfectionism that we identified earlier that really stands out for you and take it through this framework. And if you have any questions, unmute yourself. I am here, or include it in the chat box. Would anyone like to go ahead and share?
I don't mind sharing. So Hi, my name's Katie. I'm from Junior League of Racine. I just want to say hello to everybody and thank you for inviting all of League members. Um, so I identify the area of perfectionism and procrastination,
Okay.
and particularly at work. My goal is for my team, I have a skill matrix document that I've been working on for 3 years now. So just to, excuse me, show the perfectionism. My resources is to utilize that document, and my roadblocks is to stop criticizing myself with the details of that document and just get it out there to my team members and then modify it as they're using it instead of in my own head. Since it's already built for the most part, to get it out by next week, Friday. So just look it over, make sure that nothing needs to be updated over 3 years. And then my celebration would be to take a half-day vacation and have a glass of wine. So.
Yeah. I love that. And Katie, I'm glad you brought up a really good point. As perfectionists, we have everything right. And so we never give ourselves permission to change our mind. You're allowed to put this document out and change it. You're allowed to evolve. You're allowed to say, that didn't really work right. Let's do something else with it. But that's at least forward momentum, right? So you're allowed to change your mind. You're allowed to make changes, and you're allowed to evolve. And it'll also bring your team closer together because you'll be evolving together and people will be giving input, and it'll be really powerful. I'm really excited for you. Thank you. Awesome. Who else would like to share? Patty, thank you for typing that. Yep, diet is always something. I could do a whole other class on body image and perfectionism. That's something that really consumed most of my life, and I've done a lot of work around that. But yes, that requires its own like 2-hour class.
That's what I'm thinking. Everything about what you're saying is it goes off on its own little like detour, each little part of this, like not following the diet, not finding the right diet. Why do I care what number I am on the scale? And why does it always have to be perfect? And you need a whole book just on that.
Yeah. I mean, body image is something as women we can over-identify with. You know, I've had an eating disorder. I've recovered from it. Body image is a really big issue. And so, yeah, Patty, I'm happy to connect with you outside of this if you want to discuss it further. But yes, it's a very big issue. And I can also open it up to Q&A after the action plan too.
How would we get in touch with you?
So I'll just give you my personal email because it's really easy. It's just Vitale@gmail. So it's VITALE@gmail. But yes, like body image used to really take a hold of my life, and it doesn't anymore, but it required work. I mean, it did for a very long time. Anyone else want to share their action plan? Oh, Nina, good question. Okay, that you're gonna get bored. Okay, so basically, how did you find out what you're passionate about and commit to being an entrepreneur? So I have a high tolerance for risk. And so that's probably the one piece of perfectionism. I like fear of failure doesn't plague me, but all the other areas of perfectionism did. So for me, when we're trying to find out our purpose, again, as perfectionists, we're like, our purpose has to be perfect. Our decision about our purpose has to be perfect. And here's the thing, you just need to take the next step. Just need to take the next step. You don't have to know what the final product's going to look like. You just need to follow the next step. So for example, after I stopped working for lawyers, I was like, you know what? I do not want to work for lawyers anymore, but you know what? I do want to be the COO of a company someday. I had no idea, you all, that I was going to be the COO owner of my own company, but I was like, I want to be the COO of a company someday. So I need to learn HR, I need to learn finance, and HR sounds way more fun than finance. So let's start with HR first. So then I became an HR director. And from being an HR director, I became a certified coach because I started coaching the leadership team, and I became formally trained. I took a certification program and became a certified coach. And through the coaching program, I started coaching women on the side. just for fun. Through that, I realized, oh, this is what I'm meant to do. And I quit my job as a single mom with no savings and I started my business. And I just went for it. I had one client. Now, I'm not suggesting that you need to do that, but also I knew that if I waited to have the perfect amount in savings, that there would never be enough. I also knew that I just needed to go with it. But again, it's just about that next step, right? Like, I never thought I was going to be a business owner, but I was like, I'm going to be a COO. Let's try HR. Okay, let's try coaching. Okay, coaching. Oh, this is what I'm meant to do. So stop focusing on the final big picture and just focus on what feels right now. You cannot make a wrong move. The only wrong move is not moving. And the right move could be, I'm going to stay in this position, but it's about making a decision, right? You don't want to be stuck in indecision. Anyone else? I get really excited talking about this. Does anyone have any questions? We can open it up. My point here today is that you all have your own dreams and your own goals, and perfectionism is holding you back from achieving them. The goals and the dreams that you were given are given to you for a reason. They are not happenstance. If you have an idea to write a book, that's not by accident. Write the book. If you have an idea to start a business, that is not by accident. Like, explore that idea. Your dreams were given to you for a reason, and that means you have the power to make them happen in all areas of your life, your relationships, your parenting, your career, how you treat yourself. And it means you have the power to make it happen. Do not let perfectionism hold you back. This is an opportunity for you to take your power back and really claim what is yours and to step into your worthiness and everything that you deserve. So I'm just really grateful for the time today. So Britt, I'm not sure if you want to open it up for Q&A or what you want to do, but I'm here.
Sure. If anybody has any questions, might just be easiest if people just unmute and ask you.
Totally.
And again, if you don't want to ask a question out loud, I totally get it. You can just email me. It's Vitali. It's not on this slide. My professional email's on there, but my easier one is just Vitali@gmail. So much easier.
Tally, this is Carrie. I have a question for you. Okay. I was looking at the 4 C's of leading with imperfection, and you get down to the last one, which is choice. So you make your better choice, and then you hit that wheel again, that you're back into the system that you're criticizing yourself and going through all those things. So what do you do about that? If you go down and you make your choice, make your better choice, but then you're getting back to all those fast and slow and all those things that you're criticizing yourself for.
Right. So the shift out of perfectionism does not happen overnight. As perfectionists, we want the results now. We want to be changed now. And so it's giving yourself grace, knowing that, like, I've been doing this work on I teach this work, and I had stuff come up for me this week. And I was like, really? Like, I'm dealing with this piece of perfectionism right now? Like, really? And so it's giving yourself grace and knowing that, like, there's going to be things that pop up, and that's just part of the awareness. The more things that come to your awareness, be grateful for them, because then you can make a different choice. Does that help? And it's really like being intentionally kind to yourself instead of being like, oh, I'm so bad. Another thing came up and another thing came up. Most people live their lives stuck in perfectionism for their entire lives. And so you all now have an opportunity to make a choice and do something different.